So, I want you to imagine someone pressing a gun to your forehead.
Which is, a terrifying thought.
Right, exactly. Your pulse should be absolutely pounding in your ears. Like, panic should be flooding your system, just triggering every single survival instinct you possess.
Yeah, that's the natural biological response, for anyone.
But what if, instead of terror, you look up at the person holding the weapon, you actually smile, and you feel nothing but pure, unadulterated gratitude?
Wow.
You even say to them, "Go ahead, thank you for fulfilling my journey."
That is a response that just completely defies every biological and psychological impulse we have. It requires, well, basically a complete dismantling of what we consider human nature.
It really does. And welcome to today's deep dive. I'm so glad you could join us for this one because the scenario we just described, it isn't from a movie. It is the ultimate benchmark of a philosophy we are exploring today. We're looking at this document dated July 20, 2025. It's authored by someone named Xu Feng, and it's titled Walking the Path of Celestial Beings and Buddhas, A Life Beyond Adversity.
It's a fascinating text, really.
It really is. And I want to set expectations with you right up front because this is definitely not like a list of life hacks to make your work week a little smoother.
Oh, definitely not.
Yeah, our mission today is to explore this really radical, completely uncompromising blueprint for conceptually eliminating the very existence of adversity from your life.
And the central premise of this text, it really challenges the foundational way we approach problems.
How so?
Well, usually when we encounter friction in our lives, our instinct is to change the external world. We try to earn more money or argue our point more persuasively or just physically remove the obstacle in our
Right,
path.
we try to fix the outside.
Exactly. But Suefeng proposes that this outward struggle is actually the root of the problem. Adversity, according to this philosophy, well, it doesn't exist objectively in the world.
Wait, it doesn't exist at all.
Not out there, no. It is entirely a manifestation of your internal architecture.
That is wild. But I guess the idea that our internal state creates our external obstacles, it leads us directly into what the text calls the anatomy of adversity.
Yes, the text is very specific about that.
Right. So Swifang breaks down our suffering into like three specific culprits, which are ego, fear, and attachment. The text states, where there is ego and self-interest, life is filled with adversity. Where there is no self, the journey is a panorama of beauty.
And we really see this play out in the author's meticulous use of dichotomies, to illustrate just how subjective our reality actually is.
Give me an example of that.
So the document argues that fear brings adversity at every single step, but when fear dissolves, even a prison transforms into a radiant landscape.
A prison. Wow.
Yeah, and attachment creates suffering. But letting go completely turns the edge of a cliff into a stage for dance.
That's such a striking image.
It is, right? Desire and greed can turn heaven into hell, whereas an absolute lack of craving turns a prison back into heaven.
So to make sense of this, imagine you are wearing a pair of like heavily tinted, deeply scratched virtual reality goggles.
Okay, I'm picturing it.
Because of all those scratches, every time you look around, the environment appears jagged, threatening, dangerous.
Right, because your vision is messed up.
Exactly. You keep flinching and tripping because your vision is fundamentally distorted. So in Weffing's framework, the ego and our constant self-interest, those are the scratched goggles.
Oh, that's a great way to put it.
Yeah, like the obstacles seem undeniably real and terrifying to us, but the text is suggesting that simply taking the goggles off, basically shedding the ego, completely reveals this panorama of beauty that was just sitting there untouched the entire time.
Because the environment didn't actually change, right?
Well,
The apparatus viewing the environment changed.
yes, exactly.
The author is stripping away the assumption that, say, a cliff edge possesses an inherent quality of danger, or that a prison possesses an inherent quality of suffering.
Because physically, a cliff is just, well, a sharp drop in elevation.
Right. The panic, the feeling of being in jeopardy, the physical stress response, all of that is strictly what the text calls a reflection of the heart.
So it's all internal.
Completely. If your heart demands physical safety and longevity, the cliff is an absolute nightmare. But if your heart is completely detached from those physical outcomes, the cliff is just a geological feature. Like you said, it becomes a stage.
And when someone actually manages to transform their heart in this way, the text refers to them as a celestial being.
Yes, that's the ultimate goal here.
Which means, by definition, a celestial being experiences zero friction with the universe. They know no adversity.
Not at all.
But, okay, I have to ask, If adversity is just this internal illusion generated by our scratched goggles, how do we process the undeniable, sometimes really devastating external events that happen in the real physical world?
Like illness or accidents.
Yeah, tragedies occur, people get sick,
Yeah.
accidents happen. How does an aspiring celestial being interpret physical suffering without losing that internal peace?
So the author answers this by introducing the architecture of karma. They rely on the concept of the Tao, or what they call heaven's net.
Okay, heaven's net.
Yeah, basically, to remove friction from your experience of reality,
Yeah.
you have to operate under the absolute conviction that reality possesses this unshakable underlying logic.
Right.
The text explicitly states, to understand cause and effect is to taste sweetness in all things. To ignore cause and effect is to burn with resentment.
See, I have a really hard time swallowing that phrase, taste sweetness in all things.
It's definitely a controversial way to frame it.
It is. Like, it's one thing to adopt a Zen attitude when you spill your coffee. You
Yeah.
take a breath, you wipe it up, and you move on.
Sure.
But being told to meet absolutely everything with joy, that feels, honestly, a little dangerous. Well, if we apply this to systemic injustice, or say someone...
Yeah. Gravity doesn't blame you when you fall, right? It is simply a vast, completely impartial mechanism of cause and effect. The author actually writes, heaven's net is vast and flawless, none escape reward or retribution.
So it is an entirely mechanical view of the universe, basically.
Yes, very mechanical.
Like, every action demands an equal and opposite reaction, stretching across lifetimes with absolutely nothing slipping through the cracks.
Exactly. And the burning resentment we feel when bad things happen, that comes from our ego's belief that we're being, unfairly targeted by a chaotic universe.
We're always asking, why me?
Exactly. But the text argues that the universe does not make mistakes. Therefore, when you experience a hardship, what Tufing calls the bitter fruit, you aren't trying to force yourself to believe it literally tastes like sugar.
Oh, okay. So you're not pretending the pain feels good.
No, not at all. The joy does not come from the pain itself. The joy comes from recognizing the utility of the pain.
Let's dig into that utility then, because how is suffering practically useful in this framework?
Well, the text states, by tasting the bitter fruit, one dissolves the roots of karma.
Dissolves the roots of karma.
Yeah. Suffering is the specific mechanism through which past cosmic debts are cleared. It is literally a necessary medicine.
Okay, I think I'm following.
So the joy you're supposed to feel is that profound relief of knowing a debt has just been zeroed out on your ledger.
Ah, I see.
If you resist the medicine, if you ignore the mechanics of cause and effect and just scream at the universe about how unfair it all is, you generate massive resentment.
And I'm guessing that's bad.
Very bad.
No.
That resentment simply plants the seeds for new bitter fruit down the line.
Okay, I see the logic there. It's akin to the feeling of finally paying off a massive crippling loan.
That's a perfect analogy.
Right, because handing over your life savings, it hurts. It is a profoundly bitter fruit to swallow. But the overarching emotion is the liberating joy of being entirely debt-free.
Yes, exactly.
You can trust the process because heaven's net never withdraws the wrong amount from your account.
And this framework forces a complete perspective shift. If every hardship is just the universe balancing your accounts and setting you free, well then fighting against your circumstances is basically irrational.
But even understanding that mechanism, the reality of human limitation is still a massive factor here, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, an intellectual understanding of karma might get you through a financial crisis or a really difficult breakup.
Sure.
But what happens when the physical reality becomes literally insurmountable?
What do you mean?
Well, if you are facing actual starvation or indefinite imprisonment in a solitary cell, the physical body breaks down. You cannot simply intellectualize away physiological agony.
No, you really can't.
So how does the text propose a celestial being survives an environment that is actively trying to destroy them?
This is perhaps the most fascinating and definitely the most extreme application of the philosophy.
I'm intrigued.
Xuefeng outlines a survival strategy called shifting scenery.
Shifting scenery.
Yeah. To be a celestial being, or Buddha, means possessing the psychological discipline to change your environment at will, completely regardless of your physical location.
Wow, okay.
It involves a progression of strategic retreats, basically.
Let's walk through that progression then, because the text says the first step is, if the material world turns harsh, move into the spiritual world.
Right. And this first shift is somewhat accessible to most of us, I think.
Yeah, it makes sense.
If your material circumstances deteriorate, say you lose your wealth, your status, your physical comforts. You consciously relocate your identity into your spiritual practices, your internal values, and your connection to the divine.
So you stop defining yourself by your stuff.
Exactly. You stop valuing yourself based on what you own and start valuing yourself based on your spiritual alignment.
But the author doesn't stop there because, well, spiritual communities can be fractured, right? And spiritual practices can be suppressed by external forces.
Right. That realm isn't totally safe either.
So step 2 is, if the spiritual realm is under siege, you abide in the soul.
Abide in the soul.
Yeah, and the way Shuifeng describes the soul is crucial here. It isn't just like a glowing orb inside your chest. The text defines the soul as a boundless space where thought roams free, untouched by others, untouched by circumstance.
That's beautiful. And it requires visualizing the soul not as this fragile little thing needing protection, but as an infinite dimension.
An infinite dimension.
Yeah, like the material body might be confined to a 6 by 6 concrete cell, but the consciousness withdraws its identification with the body and expands into this boundless internal space.
Wow.
The text actually states that in this realm, outer disappointments literally become illusions.
So how does someone practically do that, though? I mean, if my stomach is hollow with actual hunger, the pain is screaming at my brain.
It's very loud, yes.
How do I shift my scenery so completely that the hunger stops being my primary reality?
It involves a radical severing of the eye from the sensation.
Severing the eye.
Yeah. In an untrained mind, the thought is, I'm starving. But in the boundless space of the soul, the observation becomes, the physical body is experiencing a lack of nutrients.
Oh, that's a huge difference.
It really is.
Yeah.
The consciousness steps back and just watches the biological machine experience hardship without adopting that hardship as its own identity.
That sounds almost superhuman.
The author writes, whether hungry, imprisoned, or threatened by demons, the soul remains free. The cage is real, the starvation is real, but they are happening to the avatar, not the true essence.
Which brings us directly back to the jarring scenario we opened with today, the ultimate test of this detachment.
The gun to the forehead.
Exactly. The text says, even if a demon presses a gun to your forehead, you smile and say, go ahead, thank you for fulfilling my journey.
It's so intense.
It is, and I have been wrestling with this concept since I first read it. Is this retreat into the boundless space of the soul the absolute pinnacle of human liberation, or is it like the ultimate form of psychological escapism?
That is the big question.
Right. Are you transcending reality, or are you just permanently checking out because reality is too hard?
Well, we have to look at how Yufeng views the alternative.
Okay.
The author writes, to fear death and flee from it is to live as a slave and regret your days.
Live as a slave.
Yes. The fear of death is seen as the ultimate chain binding us to the material world. I mean, it dictates our compromises, it fuels our anxieties, and it drives our self-interest.
Because we're desperate to stay alive.
Exactly. If you cling to the physical body, the material world holds ultimate leverage over you. It can always, always threaten to destroy you.
So by smiling at the gun and saying thank you, you're fundamentally disarming the material world of its only real weapon.
Precisely.
You cannot be blackmailed with death if you have already accepted the end of your physical journey.
To be unafraid of death, to long for it, is to see beauty along every step of life's path.
Wow.
So it is not escapism in the eyes of the text. It is true invulnerability.
Yeah.
You aren't fleeing reality. You're simply recognizing that the physical body was a temporary vessel to begin with. Right? By shifting your scenery into the soul, you align with the eternal rather than the perishable.
It makes sense when you lay it out like that.
Yeah.
But as radical as this 2025 document feels, Shuifeng is not just inventing these concepts out of thin air, right?
Yeah, not at all.
To legitimize this intense dismantling of the ego, the author actually anchors the entire philosophy in ancient Mahayana Buddhism, specifically the Heart Sutra.
And the connection to the Heart Sutra is really what gives this modern text its profound philosophical weight.
Yeah, it grounds it.
The author quotes it directly to explain the mechanics of how we achieve this state of a celestial being.
What's the quote?
It's, when Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva practiced deeply the Prajna Paramita, he perceived that all 5 skandhas are empty and transcended all suffering and distress.
Okay, we definitely need to unpack that because it sounds incredibly dense.
It is a bit thick, yeah.
Let's start with the actors. So Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva is this revered figure in Buddhism who embodies infinite compassion and the ability to see reality with perfect clarity. And Prajnaparamita translates roughly to the perfection of wisdom, which is essentially seeing the universe exactly as it is without those scratched VR goggles of the ego we talked about earlier.
That's a perfect callback, yes. And the core of that realization is perceiving that the five skandhas are empty.
The five skandhas? What are those?
In Buddhist psychology, the five skandhas are the aggregates that combine to create the illusion of a permanent self.
Okay.
They are form, sensation, perception, mental formations, and consciousness.
Okay, to give this a real-world application, let's say you are driving and someone aggressively cuts you off in traffic.
Happens all the time.
Right. So the five skandhas immediately build your reality. First, there is form, the physical metal of the cars and your physical body.
Yeah.
Second, sensation, your nervous system floods with adrenaline, your heart races.
Yep.
Third, perception, your brain categorizes this sudden movement as a threat. Fourth, mental formations, the narrative kicks in. Like, that driver is a reckless jerk and I am the victim of their stupidity.
The story we tell ourselves.
Exactly. And finally, consciousness ties it all together into this unified experience of personal suffering.
And that entire cascade happens in literal milliseconds.
It's so fast.
The ego relies on those five skandhas to convince you that you have been wronged and are in danger. But when the bodhisattva practices deep wisdom, they perceive that these skandhas are empty.
Empty meaning what, exactly?
They have no permanent substance. I mean, the cars are just moving metal. The adrenaline is just a chemical spike. The narrative of I am a victim is a complete fabrication of the mind.
So when Shui Feng argues that we need to shed our ego to eliminate adversity, they are directly pointing to this ancient realization.
Yes.
If the components that make up yourself are empty, well, there is literally no self there to be injured by the world. It's like trying to punch a cloud.
That's exactly it. And the text then uses the sequential logic of the Heart Sutra to map out the final stages of a life beyond adversity.
How does that progression go?
Well, the sutra states that by relying on this perfect wisdom, the mind is without hindrance. Because the ego is empty, there is basically no surface area for the material world to catch on. You experience zero friction.
Oh, that makes sense. And the sequence continues, without hindrance, there is no fear.
Which logically follows.
Yeah, it does. If you have no permanent self to protect and the material world cannot snag you or break you, the biological necessity of fear just evaporates completely.
Which leads directly to the final realization. Being entirely free of fear allows the individual to be free from inverted thinking and illusion.
Inverted thinking.
Yes, and this is what Sui Feng and the Sutra define as the ultimate nirvana.
Inverted thinking. I feel like that phrase captures the entire essence of the document.
It really does.
It suggests that our default humans, like, believing the material world is the primary reality, believing the cliff edge is inherently terrifying, believing our ego is our true self, all of that is completely upside down.
We have it entirely backward.
Right. The adversity isn't happening to us. We are projecting the adversity onto the world through our inverted thoughts.
And to solidify this total reversal of perspective, Shui Feng closes the text with the famous final chant of the Heart Sutra.
Oh, the chant. It's gate, paragate, parasamgate, bodhisvaha.
Yes, beautifully pronounced.
Thank you. Which translates roughly to gone, gone, gone beyond, gone far beyond awakening hail.
And it is the verbal embodiment of shifting scenery. It is quite literally a set of instructions.
How so?
You withdraw from the material world. You go beyond the spiritual realm. You retreat deep into the boundless space of the soul, and then you push even further, dissolving the self entirely until only ultimate awakening remains.
Wow. We have covered an immense amount of philosophical ground today. Let's recap the journey this text has taken us on.
It's been quite the ride.
Yeah. So we started by examining the anatomy of adversity, learning how ego, fear, and attachment function as those scratched lenses, actively distorting our reality and generating all that friction.
Right. We then explored the architecture of karma, confronting the really difficult concepts of heaven's net.
That mechanical cause and effect.
Exactly. We discussed how trusting the flawless mechanics of cause and effect allows us to consume the bitter fruit of hardship without generating the resentment that, well, keeps us trapped in cycles of suffering.
And then, when facing the absolute extremes of the physical world, we analyzed the survival strategy of shifting scenery, moving from the material to the spiritual, and finally abiding in the boundless, untouched space of the soul.
A radical retreat inward.
Yeah, we learned that true freedom isn't about conquering the physical world, but neutralizing its ultimate weapon by fully accepting our own mortality.
And finally, we grounded all of these 2025 concepts in the ancient wisdom of the Heart Sutra, understanding that by recognizing the emptiness of our own ego, we remove all hindrance, eliminate all fear, and cure the inverted thinking that causes our distress.
This text asks us to fundamentally tear down and rebuild how we interface with reality. It is definitely not an easy philosophy to adopt.
No, it's a lifelong practice.
So, as we wrap up, I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over as you go about your day. Something that brings the concept of the three realms of retreat down to earth a little bit.
I love that.
The next time you find yourself stuck in a deeply frustrating situation, maybe it's a miserable commute or a tense, unfair conversation with a colleague, or just a moment where the material world feels incredibly harsh and unforgiving.
We all have those days.
We do. Before your pulse spikes and your ego reacts, ask yourself, where is the door to your spiritual world in this exact moment? How can you shift your scenery inward?
Just take that step back.
And if that fails, if the situation truly strips away your comfort, what does the boundless space of your soul actually look like if you stripped away everything you own, everything you fear losing, and even your guarantee of physical safety? What is the you that remains dancing on the edge of the cliff? Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. It's been an absolute privilege unpacking this with you. Until next time, keep exploring the boundless space.